Section 18 of Shadowland, October 1919. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Donald Warren. Shadowland, October 1919. By Various. The Court of the Sage. To be happy, learn what you know not, and teach what you know. A literary man of note sends me a list of books and wants to know my opinion of it. He says the best sensational novel is The Woman in White, the best dramatic novel, The Count of Monte Cristo, the best dramatic novel, The Vicar of Wakefield, the best marine novel, Mr. Midshipman Easy, the best novel of country life, Adam Bede, the best military novel, Charles O'Malley, the best religious novel, Ben-Hur, the best sporting novel, Sarshadon, the best political novel, Lothair, the best novel written for a purpose, Uncle Tom's Cabin, the best imaginative novel, She, the best pathetic novel, Old Curiosity Shop, the best humorous novel, Pickwick Papers, the best Irish novel, Handy Andy, the best Scotch novel, The Heart of Midlothian, the best English novel, Vanity Fair, the best American novel, Scarlet Letter, the best novel of all, The Heavenly Twins. Is it not strange he does not find a place for such classics as Lorna Doone, Jane Eyre, Cloister on the Hearth, Don Quixote, Gil Blas, and the greatest of all, Les Miserables? That is quite apropos now that the governor of North Carolina said to the governor of South Carolina, "It is a long time between drinks." William T., I fear you will never be as great as your father. We hear of chips of the old block, but the truth is that parents seldom transmit their great intellectual powers to their children. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Shakespeare, Milton, Buffon, Cuvier, who are fair examples of the great intellects of their time, did not transmit their power to their progeny. What is known as genius is not transmittable. The creation of a man of genius seems to require a special effort of nature, after which, as if fatigued, she reposes for a time before making a similar effort. Distinguished men seldom have distinguished sons. A fond mother wants to know if I believe in letting small children have dictionaries to study. Dear me, no. Unless they are something like this: bedtime, shut-eye time, dust, mud with the juice squeezed out, fan, a thing to brush, warm off with, fins, a fish's wings, ice, water that stayed out in the cold and went to sleep, monkey, a very small boy with a tail, nest egg, an egg that the old hen measured by to make new ones, pig, a hog's little boy, salt, what makes your potato taste bad when you don't put it on, snoring, letting off sleep, stars, the moon's eggs, wakefulness, eyes that are all the time coming unbuttoned. As Thoreau says, there's something almost petty about an ultra-refined taste, for it easily degenerates into effeminacy, and it does not consider the broadest use. Good taste is a quality of the mind that can be, but which is seldom is, cultivated by refining influences and intellect effort. Nobody studies how to acquire taste, yet it is a quality akin to genius, and one that can be acquired whereas genius cannot. It is that faculty of the soul which discerns the beauties of a thing with pleasure and its imperfections with dislike. A young divinity student at Wesleyan University asks me to write a few words on wastes. No, for no doubt it would be a waste of words. Speaking of wastes, there is not so much to be said now as there was a few years ago, when our best ladies looked like wasps with figures like an hourglass. Their waists are quite sensible now, not because women are very sensible, because it just happened so. No longer need they fear an anti-corset league, But it would be a mighty good thing if there were an anti-high heel league. Why women insist on walking upon stilts when nature has provided them with two perfectly good and lovely feet is more than I can understand. Mr. Morton, you will never set the world on fire. You are too conservative, too cautious, and too evenly balanced. He who fears to climb lest he fall, or to lie down lest he be trampled upon, or to walk lest he be overtaken, will never freeze nor burn. He will simply sizzle, dry up, and blow away. Two twin fans want to know what I think is the greatest photodrama ever produced. That is a hard one. Years ago, when I saw Vitagraph's The Christian with Earl Williams and Edith Story, I said that this was the greatest yet done, and I stuck to this for several years. Although Vitagraph did another and shorter play, which I still think should rank among the greatest, The Battle Hymn of the Republic. Later, when I saw Cabiria, Civilization, and The Birth of a Nation, I thought these were the greatest, although they really come under the head of photo spectacles. Leaving out the spectacles, I'm inclined to think that the greatest photodrama is Revelation with Natsimova. Broken Blossoms by Griffith is far greater in several respects, but I am inclined to place the former at the top of the list. As for the greatest farce, I think I would name Chaplin's Shoulder Arms. For the greatest comedy, I think I would name Mary Pickford's Daddy Longlegs. I would like to name several other pictures that come to mind as I write, but I fear to name 10. Least I admit 10 others that I will afterwards recall as being equally great. Of this, more anon. The suffragette beams on me and inquires if I believe in clubs for women. Well, now, it depends upon the kind of clubs. Maurice G. Lane of Detroit wants to know how actresses keep their eyes open for a minute or more without tears. It is simply a matter of practice. Have you ever seen those fellows in the shop windows dressed up to look like wax figures? By long practice, these people can stand in a certain posture for many minutes at a time without a single blink and without a single perceptible movement of the chest. I don't think it will do you any harm to try to keep from winking, but it certainly will not do your eyes any good. But if you must wink, wink both eyes. Waco Forrest of Zeus, Virginia, wants to know what's the most coveted pedestal of a movie actress. I am sure I don't know, unless it be her understanding, in other words, her legs. Whether her greatest ambition is fame, fortune, or glory, I don't know, because they all differ. I fear, however, that many of them think more highly of a shapely ankle and a well-modeled face than they do of a good heart and home. You are wrong, TJB, about Solomon's wisdom. Undoubtedly, the reason that Solomon was so wise was that he had 700 wives to consult, whilst I have none. Why not invent a class of critics who can see the good as well as the bad? There is some good in everything and in everybody, but the critics seldom see it, for like flies, they pass over our good parts and light only on our sores. The critic creates discouragement when what we need most, perhaps, is encouragement. It is important enough to learn our faults, but it's just as important to learn our merits. So let us boost more and knock less. Of course, I think motion pictures are a permanent institution. Nearly 1,000 years, the drama has been to the world one of its chief sources of entertainment, culture, and education. Motion pictures began its career only 10 or 15 years ago, and even now it shows signs of competing with the drama. The motion picture is a mirror in which we see vice in its hideousness and virtue in all its purity, and we learn to despise the one and to adore the other. On the Greek stage, a drama consists in reality of 3 dramas, called a trilogy, and was performed consecutively in the course of one day. The moving picture play performs the same thing in 1 hour. The greatest product of creation is the woman with beauty, brains, and virtue. The only trouble is, the Creator never made one. My young friend from Syracuse is quite right, but there is such a thing as carrying economy too far, which recalls the following lines which I find in my notebook. He never took a day of rest. He couldn't afford it. He never had his trousers pressed. He couldn't afford it. He never went away carefree to visit distant lands to see how fair a place this world might be. He couldn't afford it. He never went to see a play. He couldn't afford it. He loved for art he put away. He couldn't afford it. He died and left his heirs a lot, but no tall shaft proclaims the spot in which he lies. His children thought they couldn't afford it. As you say, Lazarus, it never rains but it pours, yet every cloud has a silver lining. As the artist and the poet love the storm, so must we learn to love the clouds of life, because they help to make the coming sunshine brighter. A young lady asks if I advise against marriage between persons of unequal age. Well, it is customary for man and wife to be nearly the same age, yet history records many happy marriages to the contrary, among which might be mentioned that of Muhammad, who at 20 married a wife of 40, Shakespeare, who married Anne Hathaway 7 years his senior, Dr. Johnson, who married a lady twice his own age, Howard, the philanthropist, who at the age of 25 selected a wife of 42. Mrs. Rowe, the author, was 15 years the senior of her husband, Margaret Fuller, who married Count d'Orsoli, 10 years her junior, and Jenny Lind, who was 10 years older than her Otto Goldschmidt. If two persons really love each other, it matters little about their ages, so long as they enjoy each other's companionship. An old man of the library might prove a burden for a young wife who loves society, the theater, admiration, and dress, and so might an elderly matron of the household prove uncongenial to a young man who loved the outside world more than his home. But given two persons with similar taste and plenty of admiration for each other, they usually get along splendidly, even if there is a wide difference in their ages. To do a mean thing is bad, but to keep on doing it is wicked. It is easier to quench a spark than a fire, so stop, now. I'm sure I don't know what would become of the Kaiser, since he is Wilhelm II. If history repeats itself, he will have a sad fate. Nearly all the seconds in history were treated pretty rough, among the unfortunates being Alexander II of Russia, Edward II of England, Napoleon II of France, Richard II of England, James II of England, Abdul Hamid II of Turkey, Nicholas II of Russia, William II of England, William II of Holland, William II of the Netherlands, Henry II of France, Henry II of England, Ludwig II of Bavaria, Louis II of France, and Louis II of Hungary. I don't care what they do with Kaiser Wilhelm II, so long as they do it quick and put him in a safe place until his creator calls him to a hotter one. To see faces of common people in the street has always been one of my greatest pleasures. I am convinced that we not only love ourselves and others, but that we also hate ourselves and others. In every man there's a little of all men. It is a fact that there are many people who read merely that they need not think, but I hope you are not one of that kind, my dear Antonio. Truth is informed that the sage doesn't pretend to keep track of the marriages and divorces in the profession. When last I saw J. Warren Kerrigan, he was not married, and therefore I can't tell you whether he is married to Lois Wilson and has 2 children, as you say. I understand that the greatest living authority on such matters is the Answer Man of the Motion Picture Magazine, so you had better consult him. Also, I don't wish to go on record as stating why Owen Moore doesn't live with his wife, Mary Pickford. Common sense would suggest, however, that it is quite impossible for them to be together all the time, even if they wanted to, since they always play in different companies and usually in different parts of the country. As for the unpopularity of Jess Willard, I think you are correctly informed, because he was never very popular and is, of course, less so now than ever. He reminds me of a big stuffed pig, stuffed mostly with conceit and overconfidence. It is well that Jack the Giant Killer knocked the stuffing out of him, because now we shall have a real champion and a popular one. Beasts have passions, humans have reasons. But since we are human beasts, we must keep our passions within reason. The chief cause of laughter, paradoxical as it may seem, is our love of order, beauty, and consistency. We laugh only when the law of order, or of beauty, or of consistency, has been violated. The sources of all merriment are in the cordial sympathies of our nature. Laughter is a near relative of the highest and most instinctive wisdom, being brother to judgment and imagination. Hearty laughter is a sure sign of a healthy nature for both thinking and acting, in spite of the fact that idiots laugh. Surprise or incongruity lie at the bottom of laughter. Human deformity would be ludicrous were it not for sympathy and humanity. When young, we have all we can do to keep from laughing when we shouldn't. When old, we have all we can do to laugh when we should. It is not too early to repeat the old saying, Christmas is coming. Now is just about the time to begin making preparations. Most people wait until the middle of December, and thus double their expenses and trouble, and the expenses and trouble of everybody else. A moment's thought will convince anybody that the prices of holiday goods are greatly in excess of the prices of the same articles at other seasons. A large part of the so-called holiday goods are merely veneer and tinsel and of only temporary utility. The manufacturers make up holiday articles to catch the eye more than for permanent use. Especially this is true of such things as toys, dolls, frames, desk articles, and ornaments, particularly those that sell for $1 or less. Standard, staple articles, such as are sold a year round, are always more reliable than those that are made up for the holiday trade, and the prices are more reasonable. Large profits are expected on holiday goods. Furthermore, we are all excited during the holiday season, and we flit hither and thither wondering what we should buy for this one and that, and the crowds only add to our bewilderment. Perhaps some of us even let the grocer and the butcher bills go for another month, so as to have plenty to spend on presents, whereas if we should begin buying now, we would not feel the strain on our wallets. Again, the clerks and shop girls are sadly overworked during the holiday season, and they have not the time nor the patience to treat us as they do now. It is not fair to them, nor to the horses and drivers who pounce upon them as we do, all in a week or two. The best plan is this: write down a list of all those whom you wish to make presents, and from time to time set opposite their names several articles which you think would be appropriate to give them. The next time you are out shopping, look around all the stores, buy what you want, assign it to the favored one on the list, and then set your mind on completing the list on subsequent shopping tours. In this way you will have ended a hard task by December 1st and will have saved a lot of time, money, energy, and worry. It is more blessed to give than to receive. My address is 177 Duffield Street, Brooklyn, New York. So you think I am insane? Thanks immensely. Pascal, Socrates, Schopenhauer, Auguste Comte, Descartes, Leibniz, Tolstoy, Rousseau, Victor Hugo, Balzac, Edgar Allan Poe, Shakespeare, Goethe, De Quincey, Byron, Coleridge, Cowper, Dante, Dickens, Carlyle, Ruskin, Darwin, and Sir Isaac Newton have all been put down by the learned brain specialists as insane, unsane or semi-insane, and have been declared by the Holy Order of Science to be demi-Fausts, clinically psychopathic, morally paralytic, or philosophically deformed, and to have been afflicted with veritable disease of the ego, the maniacal phase of circular insanity, chronic neurasthenia, paranoia, or some other form of psychic disorder bordering on madness. In other words, anybody who accomplishes something worthwhile is insane, and so, my dear philosopher, I feel I must have made an impression on you. Thanks. I will answer you, Mrs. M., the best I can, but briefly. The will to survive is at the bottom of everything. Education, intelligence, the desire for power, and a desire to appear superior to our fellows are simply manifestations of that will to survive under more favorable conditions than they. As we become more civilized, we begin to look on our fellows less and less as rivals and more as brothers. And here lies the true test of civilization. The selfish man is the not yet civilized man. It is this altruism that civilizes him. The history of primitive man proves all this. The first impulse of man was to save himself. The second was to save his family. The third, to save his fellows. Not until he's able to say, "The world is my country, all mankind, my countrymen," is he thoroughly civilized. The doctrine of patriotism, in which a man loves his own flock only and hates all others, is evidence of only partial civilization. All of which, if true, proves that Germany has never yet been a civilized nation. Another evolution fanatic persists in trying to draw me out again on this very dry topic. According to evolutionary philosophy, there are three great processes of all true development as follows: aggregation, or the massing of things; differentiation, or the varying of things; and integration, or the reuniting of things into higher wholes. From a careful study of this one phenomenon, science could almost decide that progress was the object of nature, and that altruism was the object of progress. Why was the long, cruel, unloving process of evolution chosen, when it must have been foreseen that man was eventually to take the reins in hand and complete the work? It has taken hundreds of thousands of years to evolve man, and although he is now physically complete, bodily development having been arrested, the relentless struggle goes on, and man unwittingly becomes the executioner in the tyrannic trial of survival of the fittest. Says Lucretia, eyes were not made to see with, but being formed by a fortuitous concurrence of atoms, sight followed by an unforeseen accident. If eyes were made to see, seeing must have existed before eyes. If it did not, why eyes? And if seeing did not exist before eyes, how could eyes be made for that which is not for nothing? Viva la logique! My observation has been that the highest type of intellectual people attend grand opera and the drama when plays by such as Shakespeare, Ibsen, Goldsmith, Sheridan, and Bernard Shaw are presented. In the next class below is the type of less intellectual people who like the modern plays with morals and problem plays. In the next class below is the type who likes vaudeville. In the next lower class is the type who prefers musical comedies. In the bottom class is the type who want burlesque, commonly called leg shows. There is no set rule about this, for there are too many exceptions, but each class is sufficiently peopled to cause the writing of this paragraph in answer to an inquiry. You seldom find a person who likes Shakespearean plays and musical comedies also, and you seldom find a person who likes cheap burlesque and grand opera. Here's a quotation, and if you don't know the author and try to guess, you would not get it right in 1,000 guesses. Who loves not wine, women, and song remains a fool all his life long. The author is none other than Martin Luther. The Sage. End of section 18.